Had Fox News existed and been essentially the state-run TV during the Nixon era, there might not have been an impeachment of Richard Nixon. But there is this whole echo chamber that supports whatever the president says. What I find so astounding about the last year is how much this deeply flawed president could remake an entire political party in his own image.
And now tanks in the streets. You know, I mean, I laugh too. I mean, it's a funny premise, comedian, we like a premise like that, ha ha ha, but it's not really funny. The idea, because you should not get used to the look of tanks in the streets.
Adam Schiff is not only a stone-cold, hopeless loser, but he is one of the most corrupt, one of the most shameful, one of the most heinous individuals ever to serve in public office in America. And everything he's devoted his life to has been debunked, discredited, and discarded. He literally represents the face of failure. His sole achievement in life was fighting a losing war against Donald Trump, and now President Trump is in the White House, and Adam Schiff is the leader of a dying and dethroned movement.
Last time, I showed you how Trump called out Representative Adam Schiff for his blatant double standards. But what I didn't get to show you was the moment Trump tore into Schiff for stirring up drama over nothing, brewing a storm in a teacup as only Schiff can. You see, the Democrats and the woke left have made it their full-time mission to destroy Trump by spreading fear, hysteria, and media-driven panic. But here's where it gets interesting. Bill Maher, yes, that Bill Maher, a longtime ally and staunch liberal, is finally starting to call out the madness. He's had enough of the theatrics, and now he's turning the spotlight back on his own side. The fallout, absolutely explosive. Buckle up, let's dive in.
But we do need to be mindful of the much bigger challenge facing the country right now. And that is, there is a systematic undermining of our system of checks and balances. Brick by brick, the walls are being taken down. The wall between the White House and the Justice Department, the way we are demeaning the press, and as you say, we're suggesting that there is no such thing as objective fact anymore. The way the administration says that a judge that rules against us is illegitimate. These are ways in which they're doing enormous damage to our system of government.
Right out of the gate, Schiff slams into fifth gear, accusing Trump's administration of undermining the press and the justice system. But that's a bit rich coming from Schiff, considering the Biden administration's own record on silencing dissent. Let's not forget the wave of cancellations, deplatformings, and media blackouts during Biden's term, all aimed at anyone who dared to challenge the mainstream narrative. Schiff, of course, conveniently ignores all that. Now, because his party isn't in power, he's turning every small issue into a crisis. Thankfully, Bill Maher is right there to serve up a much-needed dose of reality. No spin, no theatrics, just truth cutting through the noise.
And now tanks in the streets. You know, I mean, I laugh too. I mean, it's a funny premise, comedian, we like a premise like that, ha ha ha, but it's not really funny. The idea, because you should not get used to the look of tanks in the streets. We don't have that look in America. And when I've seen that look anywhere else in the world, it's never been good. And to me, this is like, yeah, let's get them used to that. Tanks in the streets.
Bill Maher doesn't hold back. He tells Adam Schiff, point blank, that things aren't nearly as apocalyptic as Schiff and his allies constantly claim. In classic Maher fashion, he rips into the left-leaning media and Schiff for their relentless fear-mongering, especially the absurd idea that Trump would roll tanks through the streets to intimidate political opponents. Tanks? Really? Maher, clearly exhausted by the hysteria, warns that this kind of doomsday narrative does more harm than good. It doesn't just hurt Democrats, it damages public trust in the entire democratic process. Maher's point is clear and devastating. Exaggerating threats for political points only deepens division and hands Trump a perfect weapon to use against them. Keep crying wolf, he says, and eventually voters stop listening. When a real crisis hits, no one takes it seriously anymore. Schiff, caught off guard, couldn't push back because he's knee-deep in Trump derangement syndrome. The entire moment served as a brutal but necessary wake-up call, and it shows exactly why Maher remains one of the few voices willing to challenge his own side.
Among the most difficult to deal with is the fact that people now simply get their information from different sources. Had Fox News existed and been essentially the state-run TV during the Nixon era, there might not have been an impeachment of Richard Nixon. But there is this whole echo chamber that supports whatever the president says. What I find so astounding about the last year is how much this deeply flawed president could remake an entire political party in his own image.
Schiff didn't stop with his usual attacks on the former president. He also took direct aim at Fox News for daring to present a viewpoint that strays from his well-worn, fact-challenged narrative. And that right there highlights a bigger issue with Schiff and his political allies. They can't tolerate opposing views. The moment someone questions their version of reality, they respond with ridicule, name-calling, and outright demonization. It's a classic tactic. Discredit the messenger instead of confronting the message. Rather than engage in honest debate, Schiff would prefer to shut down dissent altogether. Love it or hate it, Fox News represents a sizable portion of the American public's voice. By vilifying the network simply for offering a counterpoint, Schiff reveals what his camp truly fears: losing control of the narrative. And once that control slips, their grip on public trust weakens with it. Fox News wasn't about to take this lying down. Even before Bill Maher had a chance to speak up, the network responded forcefully. I'll play you Maher's sharp reply in just a moment. But first, listen to this absolutely blistering verbal takedown.
Adam Schiff is not only a stone-cold, hopeless loser, but he is one of the most corrupt, one of the most shameful, one of the most heinous individuals ever to serve in public office in America. And everything he's devoted his life to has been debunked, discredited, and discarded. He literally represents the face of failure. His sole achievement in life was fighting a losing war against Donald Trump, and now President Trump is in the White House, and Adam Schiff is the leader of a dying and dethroned movement.
We all remember just how dramatically Adam Schiff's crusade against Donald Trump backfired. As the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Schiff cast himself as the face of the anti-Trump resistance. He promised bombshell revelations and insisted he had seen direct evidence of collusion between Trump and Russia, a claim that disintegrated when the Mueller report found no criminal conspiracy. But Schiff didn't stop there. He cherry-picked statements from Republican colleagues, yanked quotes out of context, and used his platform not to inform, but to craft a storyline built for headlines, not truth. What should have been a measured, objective investigation became political theater, and Schiff was its lead actor. In the process, he didn't just miss the mark. He damaged the credibility of the very institutions he claimed to protect. His actions deepened the partisan divide and created more suspicion around the oversight process. Critics didn't just question his judgment, they saw a pattern of misleading tactics dressed up as righteous accountability. And now, looking back, even many in the media and his own party admit history has not been kind to Schiff's legacy.
There's nothing new. We just get to hear Adam Schiff lie and rant and stuff like that, ask for more witnesses when it was actually his job, and he decided not to do it.
Well, Senator, when you say there's nothing new, obviously Democrats would push back and say, let's hear from John Bolton. Let's see if what he said in that videotape last August, where he said the phone call sounded like he was almost saying it was perfect or cordial, went very well, as the president has suggested with the Ukrainian president, or what he says in his book is true. Why not bring him in, hear something new, and settle this once and for all?
Well, first off, it'll never end. But they had a chance. The Democrats in the House had the chance to subpoena John Bolton. They're the ones that decided not to subpoena John Bolton. They're the ones that have decided to rush this case through, and then they said, oh, now we want you to go through the process of calling John Bolton.
Yep, that's exactly what happens when your entire foundation is built on half-truths and political theater. Adam Schiff spent weeks practically begging for John Bolton to testify, hyping him up as the key witness who could single-handedly bring down Donald Trump over the Ukraine scandal. Schiff made it sound like Bolton's testimony would be the smoking gun, the undeniable proof that would cement Trump's guilt. But then, when the opportunity finally arrived for Bolton to speak under oath, Schiff backed off. Suddenly, the man who insisted Bolton must testify had second thoughts. Why? Because it turned out Bolton's testimony might not fully support the narrative Schiff had carefully constructed. If Bolton contradicted or complicated Schiff's claims, the entire impeachment effort risked collapsing like a house of cards. So, rather than risk exposure and derail the narrative, Schiff chose silence. It was a calculated retreat that proved political optics mattered more than actual evidence. The media, unsurprisingly, didn't press the issue. But the public? They're paying attention now. The selective outrage, the double standards, it's all being exposed. And Schiff's credibility is paying the price.
Adam Schiff lies again. What will the Senate do about it? Adam Schiff lied again. We'll get into this a little bit more detail. And Politico actually was the website, a very liberal website that broke the story. And the story is this, that an oligarch whose name began with Z, who had ties to Burisma, but in fact may have been the chief dog over at Burisma, an oligarch, that Adam Schiff was trying to tie Trump surrogates and Rudy Giuliani into pressuring the president of Ukraine, whose name begins with Z too. But it had nothing to do with the president of Ukraine. But Adam Schiff had made that representation yesterday on the floor of the Senate to the senators.
Remember this one? Adam Schiff's obsession with getting Trump out of the Oval Office led him down a rabbit hole of wild assumptions and desperate leaps in logic. At one point, Schiff concluded that a Russian oligarch must be connected to Trump simply because he had ties to Rudy Giuliani, and get this, shared the same first letter of his name as the Ukrainian president. That's it. That was Schiff's so-called smoking gun. How absurd can it get? But of course, Schiff didn't stop there. He took it a step further, claiming that Trump was somehow using this oligarch as a secret middleman to pressure the Ukrainian president into accepting some mysterious back-channel deal with Russia. No hard evidence, no credible sources, just pure speculation spun into a wild conspiracy. This wasn't oversight or caution, it was a political witch hunt dressed in the costume of foreign policy concern. Schiff took coincidence and tried to present it as damning proof. And in doing so, he showed once again that, when it comes to Donald Trump, facts are nothing more than props in his partisan theater. The result? More division, less credibility, and a public growing increasingly tired of the endless noise and performative outrage.
Okay, and finally, new rule. Someone must tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging, not keep digging. Talk about doubling down on what got you fucked in the first place. Even the one concession I've heard a few people on the losing side offer, that liberals should stop saying the Trump voters are stupid, comes with a kind of unspoken parentheses. We know they are stupid, just don't say it.
If I were Adam Schiff, I'd seriously consider dialing back the relentless stream of falsehoods about Donald Trump and finally seek recovery from what's clearly a chronic case of Trump derangement syndrome. Let's be real. That obsessive hatred, amplified by the media echo chamber and built on a foundation of baseless narratives, is exactly what helped cost Democrats the White House in the first place. The nonstop attacks didn't inspire confidence. They alienated millions. If I were Schiff, I'd stop dismissing Trump voters as ignorant or brainwashed and start treating them with some respect, not by pandering, but by being truthful, transparent, and rooted in reality. Because when you insult half the country simply for voting differently, you don't bring them to your side. You drive them further away. It's long past time to stop preaching to the choir and start listening to the crowd. Americans are tired of being talked down to. If Schiff and others in his camp actually want to lead, they should try something radical: honesty. The truth is, Trump didn't break America. He exposed the cracks already there. And if the left keeps doubling down on delusion, they'll keep losing the very people they claim to represent.
I got bad news for you. They don't have a monopoly on stupid. You wear Queers for Palestine t-shirts and masks 2 years after the pandemic ended. And you can't define woman, I mean person who menstruates. You're the teachers' union education party, and you've turned schools and colleges into a joke. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person.
Bill Maher brings up yet another brutal truth about why Adam Schiff and his progressive allies ultimately lost ground in the last election. Increasingly bizarre policies and fringe ideologies that left everyday Americans scratching their heads. At the top of that list, the far left's relentless insistence that gender is entirely fluid, that a woman can become a man, and vice versa, yet they couldn't even define what a woman actually is. That kind of mental gymnastics didn't signal progress. It signaled detachment from reality. To the average American, someone trying to raise a family, pay the bills, and live with basic common sense, this rhetoric wasn't inclusive. It was elitist, overly academic, and wildly impractical. Maher points out that when your policies stop making sense to working class voters, you lose them fast. You can't claim to be the party of science while simultaneously refusing to answer simple biological questions. Voters noticed. They rolled their eyes and quietly walked away from the noise, and now the left is stunned they lost ground. Maybe it's time to stop blaming Trump and start rethinking the message. Schiff's fear-mongering, theatrical posturing, and deep disconnect with real people backfired. Hard. Maher's blunt reality checks expose those cracks for all to see. If Democrats want to stop hemorrhaging support, they need less hysteria, more honesty, and a serious return to reality, because voters today aren't buying the drama, they're craving truth, clarity, and good old-fashioned common sense. That wraps up today's commentary on the collapse of woke politics. If you found this analysis refreshing, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges the mainstream narrative. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.